Avengers! Assemble.
Hello everyone and welcome back to Excelsior, the world's #1 Marvel's Avengers podcast. I'm your director, Christian Buckley. Joining me as always is my co-host, the Apex Predator, maybe freshly tanned from the Sunshine State. We have Jack Martin.
Bold Excelsior Christian. Bold of you to assume that I'm tan and not red like strawberry. At least I was originally very red. Has turned maybe somewhat into a tan. I'll let you be the judge of that later on. We have another recording separately. But yeah, I had a great little time down in Florida. Got to see my Boston Red Sox play at Fenway South at JetBlue Park. It was a grand old time. I enjoyed it. Drank Bahama Mamas on the beach. It was fantastic.
That sounds fantastic, honestly, because you lucked out, because back up here in Massachusetts, it got a real cold after, like, things were warming up for a little bit, so you got to escape. It was nice.
Yeah, I came back and it was like 20 degrees.
Yeah.
And we had like a good stretch of like 50, 60 degree weather in the past couple of weeks. And I think we're getting back there soon, but yeah, it was not a great return. And I usually go to, when I go to Florida, which is rare, but when I do, it's like in the like February, March window. And anytime you return to Massachusetts, the weather is completely different when you return. And it's like, oh, this is awful. So yeah, another one of the books for that.
Yeah. Well, you're also returning to this wonderful game that we all put up with. And we're going to get to what's going on with Marvel's Avengers this week, in addition to reviewing episode 1 of Moon Knight in the back half of the show, so stay tuned for that. But why don't we just get back into the swing of things, see what's up with the game, because there are some things going on right now. There's a big story with the game. Not necessarily good, but something happened that we'll get to. First up, Fury's Report, updates. Double resources are running in the game right now. You can keep on farming materials up until April 4th. And the Ruskaya protocols, Jack, they're back.
Yes, this is my favorite thing in the game. So much so that I'm so excited about it, I can't even tell you what it's about.
Oh, yeah. Just blinded by the hype, you know?
Yeah. Overcome with joy. I can't even, I don't have the words to describe the Ruskaya protocols.
So this is a bit of a slapdash run of show today, right? And I looked at the blog and I saw Ruskaya protocols, and I had like whiplash when I read that. I was like, that's old. Yes, that's
honestly,
not new.
We were probably talking about that this time last year, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe a little bit later, because I think those were like the prelude to the Harm Room, the Red Room takeover, and I think that was around May, because Black Widow was supposed to come out. So I think like in the April timeframe, the Ruskaya protocols were going on. Didn't know what they were back then, and I still don't. They're like little objective thingies, similar to the Spider-Man objective, and you get stuff in different places in the game. And that's the extent of my description for the Ruskaya protocols.
I thought you were going to say that was your extent of the description of this game, and I was going to be like, yeah, you're right. You go places, you get things.
Yeah, I mean that could be, if you're trying to like write something about a video game, you start with that, and then it's like you come back to it later and you edit that out. But that's a good starting point. You go places and you do things.
As opposed to doing things, then going places like an Uncharted, you know?
Yes, exactly. That's exactly right.
Well, there's also some things added to the game in the marketplace. We did not record an episode last week. I don't think there was anything notable on the marketplace front outside of the Infinity War Spider-Man that we, I think, discussed the week prior showing up in the shop. It's still there for PlayStation players, but on every front, we have a new MCU suit, Jack. They're back.
Yeah, this is the Thor the Dark World suit. Gotta be honest, I really like this one, despite the movie being bad. The cape is magnificent. One thing I'll say about Thor, I got his Ragnarok suit because it was half off, so I copped it. saddened a little bit about the cape in that one because it's like kind of half a cape, and this is like full cape. So, I mean, you're looking at the characters from behind like 90% of the time. So, this has got a great cape to it.
Yeah, I would have instantly got this if it was like the casual Asgard setup that he's got in that movie, where he has like the navy blue green cloak that he's walking around in when he's
Oh
like
yeah,
chilling with his dad on the lawn, you know.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's a cool look too. And yeah, I think this is good, right? The MCU suits, even if they are similar to designs that are already in the game, they have a really higher level of quality to them in terms of the detail, and this is one of those. So, are you picking this one up?
Maybe for a half off situation. I will say though, it's cool that since last summer they have been like full bore with the MCU skins,
Yeah.
and have not stopped since. So, pretty good that they are getting these out pretty quickly.
Yeah,
Pretty regularly too.
for sure. That's nice. And something we didn't get to talk about was over the last week as well, they did have a 50% off MCU skin sale, which surprised me when I heard about it because I don't think we've seen the MCU suits discounted except for weird exceptions of like the bundles or that Guardians promo. But yeah, that really surprised me when I heard about that last week.
Yeah, that's pretty much the only reason I hopped into play between our recordings is to get the Thor Ragnarok suit and like dip out. I didn't even play. I just got it, walked around a little bit, and then I was out.
For sure, for sure. Well, the other important update. There was a big patch that we learned we were going to be getting. The last time we recorded, I think we talked about it, patch 2.3. On our off week, they came out saying, hey, we need more time. We're pushing it a little more. And it dropped earlier this week. There's a few things that I'll list briefly that the patch actually fixed. And then we can get to the larger conversation around the patch.
Mm-hmm.
So the war table got reworked with an easier onboarding process, easier for new players. And I'm reading off the Avengers blog, not the war table blog, but a separate post about the patch. They've updated mission chains. Nick Fury is in the game. He's helping to guide players through these chains. For new player experience, they've changed power levels of specific content, created a new mission chain to get people through the Avengers initiative, introducing a variety of mission types, which I think is a good move, just to get people used to the different types of missions there are at a good rate of challenge escalation. Updated missions on the war table in terms of the frequency of things, the customization of difficulty, updated faction placement, and just ease of access to all those things, and some updates to matchmaking as well. The new features in the patch are checkpoints for the Discordant Raid, which allows you to be rewarded with gear at each individual checkpoint, instead of just having to blitz it to the end if you want to get a reward, and a few other things about things we talked about before, like tying gear drops for the Mega Hive to hero rather than per account. So it's a lot of things that have been being built up for a while. However, what happened when you logged in to see the new experience of this game, Jack?
I heard Nick Fury guiding me through some little intros to the harm room and the war table, and then my game crashed like multiple times, which is very sad. This game can't catch a break. Anytime it does something good, something bad happens. And this is an example of that. I tried I want to say 2 times. I think it was last night, maybe a couple nights ago, to log in, see the changes. Because for me, this seemed more... The most important stuff for this was reworking of the war table and just making things a lot more simpler to find and missions. And that's something that has been an issue for me. And this seemed like it was a really great change. Unfortunately, before the recording, I was not able to see that. Couldn't get into the game. And I'd like to read a tweet that Marvel's Avengers tweeted. This is this is like the second in a thread after they realized that there was an issue that was ongoing. Eventually this, according to Marvel's Avengers, has been fixed, but last night they tweeted, "In the meantime, here's a workaround that is resolving the issue for some players. just note that it will reset your campaign progress. I don't need to read the next tweet. That is ridiculous. Why would you ever? You like have to go in and like reset your campaign progress and like quit out immediately and then jump in and then you can play the Avengers initiative. That is not a good workaround. That is a workaround, but I would not even tweet about that, especially considering they fixed it the next day. That's not a good workaround. I think it would have been better to say, hey, look, we know this is an issue. Just don't play the game for a day or two, and then hopefully things will be better. And they were. It was just a little silly to see that on the timeline.
Yeah, man. like, I, I'm baffled by that just because like, how many people are trying to get in that you have to provide something that dire of a solution? You know, like I can't imagine you have that many people chomping at the bit to get into the servers on PS5 is where you're playing, right?
That's right.
And it seems like PS5 was the one that was having the most issues with this, right? It didn't seem like it was wide scale for Xbox players and PC players. From my knowledge, it is just PS5 players have this problem, right?
Yeah, all 5 of us were encountering this issue.
Yeah. So that's just so wild. When I saw that, I just chuckled because like I it's clear we're close to probably 100 episodes. Most of that is talking about this game. We love things about Marvel's Avengers. I really enjoyed this game. I'm not playing it right now. Why would I go like twist my arm to make me not play it for another day? Like that's just the wildest thing I've ever seen a big like publisher developer of a game tweet out as a solution. That's nuts.
Yeah, and this is just another example of, I hate to say it, but they do a lot of this stuff where these sorts of patches, which don't introduce new content, is kind of viewed to them as new content, even though it's just like sort of cosmetic changes to the war table, which are good. I think the really great checkpointing systems for the raid in terms of like giving you gear, I think that's fantastic. I think they kind of made a bigger deal of this than maybe they should have, and it just brought more negative attention to the game, which is sorely unneeded.
Yeah.
At this point, and seeing that was just, you're kind of right. All you could really do is laugh at that point. We're just like, well, here they go again.
Yeah, and it's like this patch got delayed, right? So did they not know that it was gonna have problems like this on PS5? Because at that point, like, just delay it again. I know it's not the best look, but releasing it right now probably isn't the best look either. Like, I'm sure this new player onboarding process would have been awesome for the Game Pass launch when you have so many people diving in to check it out for the first time, right? So, like, the timing isn't opportune anyway. Just push it until it's fixed out, because clearly, I don't know what their staff was like if they were crunching on this or anything, but they got the problem solved very quickly. So if they needed just another couple days, I'm sure we could have lived, you know? So, and like, we don't make games. We don't know the ins and outs of it, but like, I don't know if anybody needed this right when we got it, you know? Like, I think the community's been coasting off of Spider-Man and the raid since it launched. So, yeah, strange. You already delayed it once. Maybe delaying it twice only by a week each time is a bad look. Worse for optics. I don't know. But yeah, it's rough because I will say, like, having good player onboarding for new players is so important for a game like this, because even what I think is the gold standard to a live service game, Destiny's new player onboarding sucks. It's awful. Every time I want to try and get a friend into Destiny, I, as a veteran player, am prepared to be a source of answers, assistance, and guidance and co-op with whoever I'm trying to convince through the first like new player quest, because it's not good. And I don't know if I've ever seen a live service game nail new player onboarding so far after launch, because we're what, like 19 months post Avengers launching at this point. So I'm excited to see what their solution is, because I do think introducing Nick Fury and having more direct guidance and a new quest line can be really good, because I don't think there's anything in Avengers in the initiative that would be confusing for anybody. So giving it a structure sounds like a perfect recipe for success, right? And if it's fixed now and it's able to do that, I'm going to check it out and see what it's like, hopefully before next recording. But like, it's already a hard thing to do, so I'm glad it's in there. It's just I'm just tired. I'm surprised, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, it seems kind of like maybe unnecessary for them to release it at this time, especially for the bugs that were associated with it. Like, this would have made more sense if this was like a month before like Black Panther, or like an upcoming expansion, or even like a new player or new character rather. But we don't know what's next for this game, so I mean, this could be, and it probably is in preparation for something, but we just don't know what yet. So it seemed kind of weird for this, like what you said, like they could have delayed it. I'm sure they knew that there was probably going to be an issue associated with it. I mean, they could have been surprised by it, but it seems like devs probably have a good handle on things like that.
Yeah.
So it was a little strange that this just kind of came out and there was an issue, and it seemed like there was a patch for the patch.
Yeah. And like, I don't want to downplay the positives out of this, right? Because I looked through the notes for the patch, and I didn't even read through everything. It's a pretty extensive list of fixes and everything, and at the bottom there are issues they're aware of that are probably on the road to being patched as well. But a lot of the changes that they've implemented and detailed in the patch notes are really good. And like I was saying with the Destiny comparison, having new player onboarding for a game that is looking to be a service and extend long into the future, you need that. You really, really need good player onboarding. So the fact that this was something they implemented is great and worthy of praise and applause, because it's Marvel's Avengers, it's such a huge name and an IP that even despite the, I guess, aura the game has around it at times and for the majority of its life, you're going to get new people regardless, just because of the name. If it's cheap in a sale, if they see it, if their friends are playing it and they feel like playing a game with their friends, odds are new people will still pick this up, right? So yeah, the patch put a downer on things, the crashes put a downer on things, but the patch, I think, is a net positive.
Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, like I said earlier, anytime there's a step forward for this game, there's like 2 steps back in a lot of ways. And it's sad because we really like this game, but there's just a lot of negativity towards it. And Greg Miller and Tim Geddes were talking about it on Kind of Funny Games Daily today, and yeah, it was just a lot more negativity focused toward it, and that's something Tim was pointing out. It's like there's never like anything overly positive about this game. It's just there's always some detractor associated with what's going on, and it's sad. I think the game definitely deserves it in a lot of ways, but there's a lot to like about this game, and it's just a little sad.
Yeah. So I do want to throw this thing in here before we move on from Avengers, right? Because there is something that caught my eye over the last few days. I'm going to try my best. I am not an Italian. I don't have an ounce of Italian blood in me, but Giacomo Gignati, the voice actor for Hawkeye in this game, did post a video of him in the booth, and he captioned it something to the effect of like, just finished recording lines for Hawkeye, Avengers game fans, y'all are great, look forward to it, it's going to be real cool. So despite everything that our brains have thought of, they're actively working on new content, story-wise at least. So yeah, the patch maybe would have made more sense tied to a specific thing, but if they got it ready, it will be useful when they drop new content, So silver lining, I guess.
Yeah, definitely in preparation for something. We just don't know what. And Christian, it's March 31st as we're recording this, and people will be hearing this in April. We've said, don't hear anything by the end of March. Start ringing the alarm bells. I think that's like kind of still true. I have a feeling we're going to hear something very soon, but it's been 3 months.
Yeah.
Been 3 months of relative silence about any new content. And for a live service game that this game is supposed to be, that is very unfortunate.
Yeah, like I think where I'm at also with that barometer that we've talked about is like the end of March being the thing. While we didn't get a roadmap, and the news we have is mostly bad right now, despite the core of it being good. I do think that we can probably delay the alarm a little bit longer because this is a beefy patch, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And it was delayed to the end of March, right? So I imagine there's a world where it launched when it was supposed to launch a couple weeks ago, and then maybe the week after or 2 weeks after, we would have gotten here's what the future content is. So maybe next week we get a roadmap, maybe the week after we get a roadmap. But is it fair to say if at the end of April we hear nothing, then you ring the bell?
Yeah, we're just pushing the goalpost a little bit further back each time.
Reset
But
the clock.
yeah, honestly though, I kind of feel like we won't even get a roadmap, and we'll just get announcements here and there. I don't know. I can't really hold out for a roadmap anymore. Like, hey, in a couple weeks we'll get She-Hulk, and then hey, big announcement at E3, we're gonna have a new expansion. Like,
Yeah.
I don't even think we'll get a roadmap at this point.
Unfortunately, I feel like that is probably correct, but yeah, we'll see what happens. We got some events coming up, so oh boy.
Oh wait, E3 is not even happening. Just realized.
Yeah, I just remember that also after we said that.
Summer Games Fest. Whatever Square Enix. No, they did something at E3. I don't even know. Who knows in this world of ours? We can't even have an E3 anymore. Very
Yeah,
sad.
well, we're fostering a relationship between Crystal Dynamics and Xbox with that Perfect Dark stuff, and Avengers is on Game Pass, and it feels to me kind of like they've left PlayStation in the dirt after the Spider-Man thing shipped, because it seems like outside of the skins, there's really no marketing done on the PlayStation side. Like most of the brand related tweets I see about Avengers are Game Pass related, because I also saw Avengers promoted on a Game Pass tweet, because now, up until the end of May, I think, Game Pass Ultimate members can claim up to just in full, 3 months of Marvel Unlimited.
Yeah, that's cool. We don't get this or you don't get this if you have a Marvel Unlimited account. So make sure if you want this, make a new account with a different email. But that's fun. I remember using Marvel Unlimited for our comic book discussions years ago at this point, a decade ago, 2 decades ago, on the first run of Excelsior. So it's a good service. There's a lot on there. I think people have said it has gotten better. Like they keep up with some of the new stuff pretty well, and they have a pretty extensive library of old comics. So I definitely check this out. I think I read Spider-Man Blue. I did the Civil War runs. Back in Black for Spider-Man. There's a lot of good stuff on there. So, yeah, if you have Game Pass Ultimate, check it out.
Yeah, I absolutely did this. I scooped it up because I've never used it before. I think I had a trial with a copy of Spider-Man. I think they gave me a month with that, like the game.
Yes.
So yeah, I scooped the 3 months, and I have read 6 issues of Chip Zdarsky's Daredevil run, which I started a while ago, and then just fell off because it's hard for me to keep up with comics. But yeah, that's a really, really good run of Daredevil, and Chip Zdarsky just got put on Batman also, which is gonna be real
Oh, cool.
cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so if you are claiming this, maybe you're gonna be reading Moon Knight get some stuff on there. Moon Knight was front and center when I downloaded the app because, of course, brand synergy, you know. But yeah, great service, providing another great service. And like you said, I think people have, like, long-standing subscribers of Marvel Unlimited have mentioned that it's gotten better. And I think the most recent issues they have are from 3 months ago. So I think before it was like on a 6 month delay for new stuff. Now it's only three.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really good app. Like I read these on my phone and it was fine with me. I think you mentioned you have a like one of the comic-y Kindle, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a Kindle Fire HD something.
Oh, sweet. Yeah, so I bet that looks fantastic on that. So this is a really good app. I enjoy it. I have nothing really that I really want to read for Marvel at the moment, but I should probably make a new account and scoop that up.
Yeah, because who's to say? You might get really bit by this Moon Knight bug and want to see more about the life of Mark Spector, you know?
Yeah, it's very possible.
Or you might want to read up on Morbius, the Marvel legend.
That's okay. That's certainly okay.
So, Morbius sucks. I haven't seen it, but it sucks, right? That's the sentiment.
Yeah, of course, this is not a surprise. Jared Leto's in it after all. And it just looked horrendous. This is like one of the only trailers. My girlfriend and I were seeing the Batman, and the Morbius trailer came and went through, and she turned to me and she was like, "You're not taking me to see that. Like, if you go see that, I'm not going." And I gotta be honest, I don't know if I'm gonna see this in theaters. I already watched videos about the post-credit scenes in this movie because I'm like, I don't care enough to see the movie. I just want to know. But yeah, I don't know if I'm going to see this in theaters. If this was day one digital, I would see it day one. But it's not. I don't want to get up. I don't want to leave the movie theater depressed. Even more so than I think from the Venom movies. I don't want that feeling. I don't need it. I'm probably not going to see it.
Yeah, as a staunch defender and lover of the Venom films, and somebody who is looking forward to Madam Web and a couple other potential Sony projects, I really do not have the willpower, I don't think. Like, I might see it because I'm bored this weekend. I don't know. Like, I'm curious, I think. I'm curious to see just how bad it is. Because I do have that sort of morbid curiosity where it's like a 17 on Rotten Tomatoes right now.
Yeah. It's like, that's honestly even worse than I was expecting it. I was expecting like 40s and 50s, but that's bad.
Yeah, like if it was 40s and 50% though, I'd be like, okay, because that's like meh, you know? It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's whatever. This is offensive. This is what people are saying. Like, this thing like messed me up. This ruined my day.
Yeah.
I need that, you know?
Yeah, you let me know. I would be very curious to see if you go and see this. I was planning on seeing this, really. I was. But I don't know. I feel like I'd be very dejected coming out of this movie. And I've seen a lot of people say this. I don't want to support Sony
Sure.
with my money. Because, like, people have said, like, oh, I don't want Sony to get the idea that I liked this. Because if you're spending money on something, movie studios are just like, oh yeah, they liked it. They went out to see it, and they liked it. I don't want them getting that idea in their heads. I also just don't like Jared Leto. Go away. That's my opinion.
Yeah. I can't add anything to that. I can just agree. So. Enjoy Morbius, I guess. Do you think we're gonna get a Morbius 2? That's my big question. Do you think this is gonna do well at the box office? Because there's some weird cult around this film. Maybe it's Jared Leto's cult. I don't know. There's like some weird energy around this movie, even before the previews came out, like some people were genuinely excited for this. Like some of the big influencers on my TikTok that I pop up as like Marvel creators were like, Morbius is gonna be fun. It's gonna be this and that. And then once the previews came out, they were like, oh, yeah, this is never mind. So like, what do you think it's gonna do? Like box office wise, like a shred of Venom at all? Like Venom, I feel like is there's still an appeal to Venom, right?
Yeah, I don't think this does. I don't think this does like horrendously. Yeah, I feel like for Venom there was an attachment to the character before those movies came out. Um, and there like kind of is for Morbius, but not for the general movie going audience. For like comic book nerds, sure, but I feel like the word of mouth about this movie is really bad, and there really isn't that general sense from a general movie going audience that that's a character that they want to see on screen.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't think this does very well. I don't think it does poorly. Like I don't think this doesn't like make its budget back or anything like that. But I don't see this doing very well. I think Morbius will continue as a character in whatever team up movie they want to do for villains versus Spider-Man. But I don't know if he gets a sequel.
I would like to see Morbius, played by Jared Leto. I think you talked about this, appear in the Blade film and bite it, you know.
That'd be nice. That would be nice.
I did see one last thing before we move on. I did see a funny clip of an interview where Matt Smith was asked, like, if you could do a reunion with Karen Gillan and do another run as Doctor Who for like a special or something, or a Morbius sequel with Jared Leto, which would you pick? And without skipping a beat, he was like, "Oh, Doctor Who," and then like he answered so quickly, he was like, "Not to say I wouldn't want to do a sequel with Jared, you know, like it'd be a lot of fun," but and then just went off on how great Doctor Who is. So
Yeah.
thought that was funny.
Yeah, I don't know if anyone's really excited. Like, I don't believe anyone who says they're excited about Morbius. I do not believe you. It sounds, I don't know. There's not much else I can say about it. It sounds awful. I'm not excited.
Yeah, so maybe look forward to hearing what I thought of it next week, but no promises. But you know what you will hear us talk about next week?
Yeah, what's up?
The second episode of Moon Knight, because we're going to talk about the first episode now.
Yes. Finally.
Yeah, so long time coming. I feel like they announced Moon Knight as a project a long time ago, but it's here. Episode 1. Spoiler-free thoughts. Jack, what did you think of the premiere of Moon Knight?
I liked it a lot. This is a really good first episode. I think it establishes the character very well in terms of what we're dealing with here with Mark Spector / Stephen Grant. I really like Oscar Isaac. That's someone I can follow along with whatever he does. But I think especially in this episode, he does a great job of like making his character very interesting. Both characters, I suppose. More so than the other Disney Plus shows, feels very filmic. And this episode kind of felt like the first 15 to 20 minutes of an origin movie, but they had a full 45 minutes to deal with this character and like where we find them. And I think that they explore that very well and they use the time very well.
I like that you said it feels more filmic because I did get that very much out the gate compared to the other MC Disney Plus shows, which didn't upset me, but put me on like a hesitation a little bit because going into this, I think last week even, or the last time we talked, I did say like, oh, I really hope it embraces the TV structure the way WandaVision does because I think that's a benefit to the TV shows. And we talked about that with Daredevil also. So I think the way it's written, they set up an interesting mystery and they provide us some puzzle pieces, like they show us some things without any context, which I think is for a TV release structure, like they did a good job, and that's what they should be doing for a week-to-week release thing. Despite it very much feeling like what you said. It's the beginning of a movie, and we're getting the next part of the movie next week. So I think it's a very fine balance, and I don't know if I'm describing it well enough, but I feel like that is something that the other MCU projects on Disney Plus that feel like movies didn't necessarily have going for them. Like I think Loki got close to that, but as much as I enjoyed Falcon and I did enjoy Hawkeye for the most part, like it didn't really feel like there was some hook that made it feel TVE, you know? And I do think Moon Knight has that because of the way they present the story, the way the narrative is structured, and Oscar Isaac just being a compelling lead uh, based off the premise. So, why don't we crack into spoilers? Uh, where do you want to start?
It's hard because, like, I don't know if you can really spoil anything with this episode. Um, but I don't know. I guess maybe how. I guess maybe like his personality situation and what he's dealing with.
Sure, because the character from my reading has dissociative identity disorder, and the way that's introduced in the show, they haven't overtly stated it or addressed it really, but I think the thing that I loved about this episode, and I'm curious how you feel about it because I could see this being a divisive point, not between us, but just like in online. They present the audience perspective of this world and story through Stephen Grant, like so strictly that there are events that his other personality, Mark Spector slash Moon Knight, does that we don't see. So presenting a fight scene as the build up to it and then immediately cutting to what happened because Steven, the personality, blacked out and came to see what Mark had done. I absolutely loved that choice, and I thought it was structurally and mechanically very representative of what I know the character to be, and very fresh and new for the MCU. It just felt creative, and I really, really liked that a lot. How do you feel about it?
Yeah, that was cool. Stephen Grant is a venue for the audience in this episode in particular. So I did like sort of hopping around with him and him having no agency at a lot of points. In a lot of points where he does, he probably shouldn't be the one behind the wheel. Quite literally at some points. But yeah, I thought that was cool. I do think that will change going forward. I think
Definitely.
we'll see a lot of Mark Spector and Moon Knight take over, and there will be some action scenes. But I think for an episode 1 of this show, I think that was very interesting to see. Just to show sort of the chaos of what he's dealing with, and for the audience to see that themselves. And like I said, I think Steven is sort of in that situation to be a member of the audience and not really understanding what's happening. So I thought they conveyed that very well.
Yeah, and again, it feels just so fresh for Marvel because I feel like the last time there was something like from just a filmmaking level that felt really cool was what WandaVision did with like the hey, we're committing to the era in literally every way, you know? Like just from a way it's presented, I feel like people talk about the Marvel formula a lot, and I'm sure we'll reach that with this show, but everything since WandaVision has felt like it's Marvel, but it's tackling a different theme or subject. But this feels like they had an idea, you know?
Yeah, no, totally. I think that's probably where I'm most interested to see where the story goes, is how they deal with his character and who is kind of the main driver of Mark Spector slash I almost said Grant Gustin, Stephen Grant, because like we're introduced as Stephen Grant being the protagonist, but that might not necessarily be the case. Like Mark Spector could be kind of the guy that we see more often than not. So that's something I'm intrigued to see, like how they deal with that. Like who are we seeing more often by the end of the show?
I have to ask you also because this is another complaint that I've seen a lot of that I'm not on the side of, but people are taken out of the experience because of Oscar Isaac's accent that he puts on. But like, is the point of it? My read on it is that it's like, hey, so Stephen Grant, despite like you said being introduced through him, isn't the primary driver most likely because Mark Spector is the one who has all this history. He's the one working with this Egyptian god, and Steven seems like an obstacle for him to work with because of his DID. So like Steven is the identity that like Mark has to deal with. So like it's just the identity, right? Like Mark sounds like Oscar Isaac.
Yeah,
So
Steven's the mask.
yeah, so Steven is like like in I don't want to like mince words or anything, but like he is doing that as the character with this problem, right? It's not like Oscar Isaac willing. Maybe he just sucks at accents, but like that was my read on it, right? Like this is just a false identity this person has.
Yeah, I think as soon as you kind of realize from the trailers and even like from the discussion before the show, um, you knew that the accent sounded bad, but you knew at the same time that he had like different personalities, and this seemed like it wasn't quite the one. And you're right, like at the end we realized like, oh, he's an American, presumably. So this is this is him trying to like unconsciously thinking of himself as a British person, despite not having that accent. So like his brain is sort of trying to cope with that and sort of develop that accent, even though it sounds bad. And it's done purposefully. It's purposefully bad from like the production side of things.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. But I have seen a lot of people being like, "Damn, did he not get a dialect coach?" It's like, man, that's I don't think that was the point, but
No,
okay.
I think it's very much on purpose.
Yeah, cool. Um, what did you think of Ethan Hawke introduced as a villain?
I'm so fully expecting. I think there's 6 episodes. By episode 6, for him to be a very forgettable villain.
Yeah, me
Um,
too.
like I don't know. It's just another Marvel villain problem. I think he does fine in the role in episode 1. I wasn't really like captured by him by any means, but yeah, I'm not super enthralled with what's going on with the villain. I think, especially for a lot of origin stories, except for like Black Panther, the villain is just kind of a means to get the character up and off the ground. And I feel like that will probably be consistent with Ethan Hawke's character, who I don't even remember the name of, and his group of friends. But yeah, I wasn't really taken in by his character, and I expect by the end of the show I will not remember his name.
Yeah, I'm with you. Like I like Ethan Hawke, and I was excited that he was cast as a villain. But as soon as we start like seeing stuff from him with the trailer, I was like, this feels very milk toast, kind of. Like it just seems very by the books, like boring. Like he's I don't even probably gonna be the main villain. It seems like they're building up this Egyptian uh, deity that he's acting at the behest of is going to be the one that shows up, I think, probably as the big CG monster fight to end the show, right?
Yeah, I think it'll be Mark/Steven in tandem with the Moon Knight God, which I'm forgetting the name of, and Ethan Hawke in tandem with the Egyptian God. I think that's kind of what they're setting up.
Yeah, I think that's the most likely outcome. And I did see going into this when impressions came out, a fair number of people say Oscar Isaac reminded them of Tom Hardy as Eddie Brock and dealing with Venom in this. And I don't think they were true like fully off base, maybe. Like I see where somebody could get to that, but like How do you feel about it? Because I don't know.
That's kind of the first thing I thought when he was in. It looked like, I don't know, some part in Bavaria, Germany. I'm not sure exactly where they were, but as soon as he showed up there and he could hear the voice, I was like, oh, it's kind of like Venom in a way.
Yeah.
And it is. It's very similar, at least in that episode, where you have someone controlling him without his sort of permission, I suppose, and he just kind of has to go along with it. That's very similar. I'm interested to see if it's more of a one-to-one in the next few episodes, but that's certainly the impression I got from that scene alone.
Sure, yeah. I think the people who I saw say that use that as a negative against the show, but I don't think that's. I don't have a problem, but maybe I'm the one out of my mind because I like Venom, but like I don't think it's a problem.
It's way less over the top, at least in this episode. It is.
Sure.
It honestly, I mentioned twice from My Hero Academia, I think maybe a couple weeks ago, and it kind of was in line with what I was thinking him to be. Like he sounds a little more. He sounds kind of silly in a way, but not like Tom Hardy over the top Venom silly. So I'm not very familiar with the character, obviously, but I want to see what that looks like. Especially next episode, I imagine we'll get more of an explainer, like, hey, this is what's going on. So I want to see how they handle that.
Yeah, I think that's a fair expectation. And like you said earlier, I don't think the entire thing is going to be the Steven show. Like, I bet we at least get one episode where Steven is probably maybe like 10% of the episode, because based off the trend, maybe that's the final episode, because the trend of the Marvel shows is we do have a third act for a season of television, so I could see him sort of fall to the wayside for that maybe. But one thing that I really did not like was that car chase.
It was distractingly bad at parts.
Yeah, dude. It was rough. Like,
Specifically the log portion.
yeah, dude.
He was like in the center of like a sideways log truck and had to maneuver. And it was really early in the morning when I was watching this, and I really thought I dreamed this, where he like moves like 50 feet to the right in like a blink of a second, and it's just the like first person camera perspective. And I was like, that looked very bad. That looked like he just floated to the right. Like there's no earthly possibility that he could maneuver a car that way. Let alone the CG just looking atrocious. But yeah, it was pretty bad.
Yeah, like, oh man, it looked really rough. Like even the cars, they looked out of like a PS3 rendering cutscene. Like it looked really rough, and surprised me. Like it is the worst looking CG I think I've seen in a Marvel thing in a long time.
Yeah, it was not good.
Yeah, so like I really like the choice they made with not showing the action for Steven. I don't think they can skirt by an entire show doing that, nor would they. But my hope is that that looked bad because there's more important action sequences later that they dumped the budget into. Right?
Yeah, you would hope so. I'm still very confused about the Marvel situation on Disney Plus. Like, oh, we have a TV show, we don't have the budget for that. And it's like I get you have more to work with in like a 6-hour show compared to like a 3-hour movie. But I have to imagine like there's less CG in a lot of instances, especially with something like Moon Knight. So it's like I don't know. It's weird to me that one of the biggest properties in the world has like budget constraints like this, and it can look as bad as it does. Like that is very distracting.
Yeah, like I know they haven't used stagecraft like the Mando tech on any of the Marvel stuff. I think the first Marvel project that's doing it is Guardians 3.
Mm-hmm.
And to my knowledge, they haven't used it for any of the shows, but like, woof. Like, I hope they start using it because a good example of it recently was the Batman used it for a lot of the Gotham skyline shots when he was on the like construction thing where he met Gordon a lot.
Yeah. Hmm.
and that looked great. So like, it can work in non-sci-fi Star Wars places. So do it.
Yeah, I there are very few instances in The Mandalorian and like Book of Boba Fett and things like that where like the CG looks bad. I really can't even think of any at the top of my head. But like so I think that's definitely a good route to go. And like Disney owns Marvel, Disney owns Star Wars. You would think that that would be more of a common technology used, but yeah, I guess not until Guardians.
Yeah. I also saw people say some things about like the CGI mummy dog at the end, but like I didn't get a clear good look at it, so I can't have an opinion on if it looked bad or not because they only showed it very briefly. But that ending reveal of Moon Knight and the use of Mark in the mirror, I really liked where we left off. I think that was a really good moment to just put a period on the pitch of what this show is, because I think by the end it's very clear that this was a lot of setup, and by the end we have an expectation going into next week what this show is.
Yeah, I think in terms of like the end of an episode one, this and Falcon and the Winter Soldier are up there for me. Because they both leave off on really great notes of like, oh, I want to see what happens next. And the fact that he is now Moon Knight, and I'm expecting for episode two we'll get more of like an explanation of what that means because I really don't even know. That has me very excited, and to just see him be a little bit more violent. I wouldn't say more over the top than we've seen in Marvel shows, but a little bit more. It was a nice touch. I feel like that marketing note of this is like the darkest MCU project so far is probably over the top. I know it's the first episode, but I have a hard time believing people saying that until I actually see it. But we got a little bit of that at the end of this episode.
Yeah, and I hope that quote wasn't about the like rubber toy looking person that was warped by that tree, because like yeah, they hung on that shot, but it looked funny. So like it didn't look brutal, right? So I do hope that, like you said, it's not going to reach the levels of Daredevil, or and I don't think it should if it's not having a purpose, but curious to see what that Moon Knight brutality looks like moving forward.
Yeah.
Were there any things that we haven't touched on yet in the episode that stood out to you that you want to talk about? Like, how do you feel about the humor, maybe? Because it feels a bit more, not like reserved, but I feel like a lot of the humor in it felt a little understated, except for a couple lines. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't think it beats you over the head like Marvel projects typically do. So I appreciated that about this. I think overall, I really liked Steven a lot. I think he's very sweet, and caring. Like, kind of feel bad for him in a way. So I like that aspect about him. And I honestly like. I think if you told me at the beginning of the show, like before I saw it, that he would sort of fade away into the background and Mark would be more of the prominent character, then I'd be like, oh, sweet. Yeah, I don't want to hear that accent. But I think after the end of this episode, it's kind of like, I kind of like Steven in a way. He's kind of grounded as a character. You kind of feel bad for him. You kind of want to root for him. So kind of hope to see more of him stick around, honestly.
Yeah, I agree, because I do think that he brings a more human level to the MCU than any other character so far, right? Like Steven as a person is just a guy, and there is no MCU character who's in a leading role that is just a person, not even Peter Parker. So I think that would be able to ground it in a really interesting way that we haven't seen before. And I can see through the Steven angle why some people would have said that, like, oh, it's bringing a level of a character to the MCU for the first time since Iron Man in terms of getting on the ground level, right? But even Iron Man was a billionaire. So, like, Steven's just a dude. So having to deal with this and maybe not even realize he's dealing with it is I think opening the door to maybe not have to rely on comedy so much. Like he does have that like Avatar joke when he's talking to
Oh
the
yeah.
guy.
Hmm.
But yeah, dude, like the scene when he's at the diner, that was so sad. It was like a little funny the way he like dealt with it to the waiter where he was just like, I want the good part of the steak. But like that was a sad scene and like it wasn't like a pun or anything like really in your face they did to make it feel like less of a punch. Like it just felt bad seeing that happen to him. So
Yeah, I think that scene in particular was one of the highlights, and that's what I was saying. Like, it kind of made you want to root for him. Like, none of this was really his fault, and he's kind of just thrust into this situation. So you really do kind of feel bad for him, and I want to see how they handle that. Really, like, I'm very interested to see how they do handle that. I think it'll be interesting. It's very unique in terms of characterization for the MCU, so I think that's really cool.
yes, and from what I'm aware of, they did hire like a psychiatrist from UCLA or something as like an expert to reference for the way to represent everything that this character deals with. So I think that sets an expectation higher than what it already was to make sure it's like handled respectfully. But yeah, I'm very curious to see how that continues because out the gate they really did surprise me with the layers of the technique they're using to convey whatever story we got with Steven and Mark and Moon Knight. So
Yeah. I will say there's a lot of hyperbole online, as there always is with Marvel. I don't know why. It's always overly positive with Marvel. Star Wars is like such a mix, but Marvel is always overly positive. And there's definitely a lot of that. Like people were saying this is like the best 40 minutes in the MCU. No, it's not. Sorry, it's just simply not. But it's really good, and I'm interested to see how it goes further. And we got 5 more episodes, so I think it's seems like a really solid premise. And for 6 episodes, I feel like they're not really wasting any time with that. So that has me excited.
yeah, I think it's my second favorite episode 1 that we've seen so far, personally.
WandaVision, your first?
Yes.
Nice.
Yeah. And then probably Falcon third, or actually no, Loki third and then Falcon, I think.
Yeah.
So, what's your placement, do you think, for episode 1 of Moon Knight, like amongst the other debuts?
I'd have to think about that.
Sure.
I like WandaVision a lot in terms of I didn't love episode 1, but I do like that really uneasy feeling towards the end of the episode. I think Hawkeye is probably my least favorite, and then I would say maybe Loki at number 3, and then WandaVision, and then Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and then no, I would say Moon Knight and then Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I'm not really sure, but that's kind of where I'm thinking right now.
Nice, yeah. Well, I think regardless, it's for the most part. I haven't read much of the discussion online about this. I'm just the action thing was something I assumed would be a complaint, but
I didn't see that. I don't
okay,
think.
okay.
Were people talking about that?
I don't know, man. I did see some people say it was boring, and I feel like
Oh,
that
okay.
is the answer to that complaint. It's like, oh, why? Because they didn't show the fight scene. But yeah, I think it's off to a promising start, like you said, and I'm looking forward to next week. But until we see it and discuss it, Jack, where can the agents of Excelsior find you?
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at FascinatedJack. What about you, Christian?
You can find me on Twitter and TikTok at Chun2D2. YouTube.com/joyclicks is where you can go for the video version of Excelsior alongside a few other videos that go up here or there on the channel, mostly gaming related. You can check out the show in audio format on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, anywhere you listen to podcasts. Just look up Excelsior, Joyclicks, or Avengers Game Podcast. You will find us. Rating and reviewing is a very easy way to help the show out. It takes a quick second, and if you can do so, we would very much appreciate it. As well as going to patreon.com/joyclicks to support the shows at the $1 and $5 tiers. $5 will give you producer credit on every show we produce, like Aaron Easton and Jose Garcia. So thank you very much. And that is it for this episode of Excelsior. We'll be back next week with more Moon Knight, maybe a roadmap, no promises, and maybe Morbius talk. I hope not.
From you, certainly, not from me.
Yeah, exactly. Until then, though, Excelsior.
Excelsior.